You're listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. And here is a brief word from this episode's sponsor.
Welcome to the Haunting, Unearthly, and Paranormal Stories podcast. Each week will be a different event, whether paranormal or some other strange and unexplained happening. Maybe even a haunting located near you will be examined and relayed to you. These events and stories are based on events and have been given to us by the people who experience these events in their own lives. These weekly journeys we take together will lead us down deserted roads, into the deep and dark forests, and through the doors of buildings we should not enter. Pull up a chair and join me as we take a step into the unknown here on the Haunting, Unearthly, and Paranormal Stories podcast. Just remember, believe those that you choose, or believe in none. It is your choice.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. Welcome back again. We're so glad that you came back to give us another listen, and I hope we don't disappoint. Tonight, we're going to talk about some fun stuff.
Fun?
Well, it's okay. It's entertaining.
It's fascinating.
And why we're so fascinated with stuff like this, I don't know. Tonight, we're not going to talk about ghosts, which is what I like to talk about most. But we're going to talk about something a lot more. I don't know. Is macabre the right word for this, or
Yes.
just?
Yeah.
It's just. I don't know. It's creepy, and that's kind of why we talk about it, because it is kind of one of those creep factor things, just like ghosts are, and haunted things. But we're going to talk about probably the most famous serial killer in Utah, at least,
The most, yeah, everybody loves this.
and maybe Florida. I don't know, but.
Well, don't forget Colorado and Washington and California if you're going to name states.
I don't know. I can't speak for those states. I mean, he reigned all over, but in Utah, everybody knows
Everybody has a story about this one.
Ted Bundy.
In Utah.
Mr. Theodore Bundy.
TED Talks. We should just call this TED Talk. This episode is titled TED Talk. No, hopefully it's a bit more entertaining than a TED Talk. Oh, I've seen some pretty good TED Talks too. Then let's go around the table and let's introduce our fancy panel of podcasters. There we go. Hosts. First of all, over at the helm over here, we have the lovely Mr.
Josh.
Okay, not so lovely, but he's dashing. We'll say he's.
I'm sporting the long hair
Here
today.
you go. Long hair.
That's long hair.
This is long
It's
hair.
all of an eighth of an inch, maybe a quarter.
Yeah.
All right. And then continuing onward,
Jamie. Teri.
and I am Lord Mike, the Fantastic. Just kidding.
We're just adding titles.
Somebody
now.
thinks I'm fantastic somewhere. I'm sure my mom does. Unfortunately, Elisa could not be here. Do we tell people it's Elisa's birthday?
Well, we just did.
Happy birthday, Lisa.
Yeah, we should sing to her. No, we won't. We won't. But Elisa had some family plans because it's her birthday. So pop a message on social media, go to the pages, and then posthumously, if that's the right word.
Posthumously.
That's after you're dead, huh?
Yeah.
Well, maybe she'd have a really good birthday. give her a belated birthday wish. I think she'd love it. All right. So let's jump into it.
Let's.
All right, so everybody's heard of, most everybody has heard about Ted Bundy.
If you haven't, go Google him.
If you haven't, go Google him and go watch some movies.
Go to Netflix.
Go to
Look him up.
Netflix, and there's one called Conversations with a Killer that's really good. Talks about him, and that's where we got a lot of our notes and a lot of information from.
Yeah.
But there's also a really good movie with Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy, and they did a really good job with it. So, giving those plugs up front. And I'm sure there's lots of others. There's also a Deliberate Stranger with Mark Harmon from back in the 80s that I used to watch. You know who Mark Harmon is? You're thinking.
No, I'm just trying to think of the the show, but I don't remember it.
We know Josh doesn't watch movies.
I know.
Like
Well,
I
that's
did
been
back in the
proven.
80s.
Mark Harmon was in like what is it, an NCIS or that's the Navy law one?
Oh,
Jag.
Jag.
I don't know, but he was also in the movie Summer School. He's a good-looking dude. I don't know.
I'm trying to think if I've even seen any of those.
Oh, Summer School's great. But yeah, no, but there's plenty of movies. I think there's probably other ones too.
Oh, I'm sure
there are, because he was one of the probably the most famous serial killers. Because most of it happened in like happened in my lifetime. Well, okay, I take that back. The court stuff happened in my lifetime.
Well, and he was executed in our lifetime.
He was executed in my lifetime.
So, but like when I think about it, though, like there's the Green River Killer, right? There's Zodiac. There's a handful of other ones, but
Because we did Richard Ramirez.
Oh yeah, Richard
Yeah.
Ramirez was
Go
in our
back and
lifetime.
listen to
That's
that
true.
episode. It was a great episode.
Oh yeah, if you haven't listened
Yeah.
to the Richard Ramirez episode, that's a total creep show. That guy creeped me out.
he's actually worse than Bundy.
Oh, worse.
Yeah.
Oh, way worse.
Hands down worse than Bundy.
Way worse.
Yeah.
Not that we're like comparing how evil somebody
No,
can be.
but typically you don't get these mass murder serial killers nowadays because they catch them so much faster.
Right.
Because of the technology that we have and the DNA evidence and all that kind of stuff.
Although there was one that just got caught last year. I think it was last year. I think he killed 10 people.
See, nowadays it's all like the people like they go on the subway and with a handgun and lots of ammo, or
You get
they do a mass shooting or a mass
killing.
bomb thing, but it's not drawn out over months where they're trying to find who it is.
Instead of being a serial
It's a
killer,
one-time
Yeah.
flash bang boom, get your name on the news, and then you're done for
Life.
life. Yeah. Whereas these are a lot more diabolical. They inspire fear throughout the community. In fact, we were talking about it, and my daughter's like, I would really like to have live in the time like this where, where you just kind of have that fear of like what's going on. And she's like, I'm like, why would you want to live with
COVID
that?
didn't do that enough for her.
Right.
I don't know. I was like, I called her out. I'm like, no, you don't want to live in that kind of a thing where you're afraid. She's like, it'd be interesting to experience that kind of fear. And I'm like, no.
See, I grew up at that because, for a little bit anyway, at least my mom did. But growing up, I was living in North Dakota, and Jacob Wetterling was kidnapped probably, I think it was 150, 200 miles away from where I lived. And so, like, that whole kidnapping stuff rocked Minnesota and North Dakota. And so there was this fear that, you're not safe even in numbers, because if you guys remember, he was kidnapped at gunpoint with his friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you live somewhat with that fear. And so it's like, yeah, this is not the fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say anything's fun, but I think she just found it would be interesting is what she was more getting
I
at.
would
And I'm
have
like, no,
no desire for it.
nope. But she's also young. She doesn't even remember what 9/11 was like and what kind of paranoia we all had then, There's,
Yeah, people were really terrified to get on aircraft after that.
yeah, I mean, it was eerie.
Yeah.
And we were always afraid. We were hosting the Olympics here in Salt Lake, that following spring. And I thought for sure, not following winter, back in, in January, just a couple months later. And I thought for sure, what's a better place? Well, the Olympics are here,
Oh, the
Yeah.
security
The world's
was so
watching.
high during the Olympics then too.
and it was, I wouldn't want to live in an area, in a time frame where I'm afraid to go outside. And I don't know, more afraid now that my daughter is a teenager and more of a target. So anyway, well, that all being said, it was a great episode. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. And what's the catchphrase? I'll say it. Stay good. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, that lasted 21 seconds.
Yes.
Fastest episode ever.
Right.
All right. Let's talk about Ted. So Ted, a lot of interesting things I didn't know until we started kind of doing some of this research in this. So I knew that Ted was a very I wanted to say flamboyant, but that's not
He
necessarily
was
right.
a flamboyant.
He was very smooth and very charismatic, and people liked him. But I didn't know what kind of a child he had or what kind of a life he came from.
Right.
So, he was regarded as charismatic, considered to be very handsome. The traits that he exploited actually to win the trust of both his victims and as society as a whole. You know, he typically approaches victims public places after feigning a physical impairment, like
he was so full of himself,
like a
too.
broken arm or be on crutches, or, you know, he'd ask people for help, and then when they had their back turned and trusted him, boom, that's when he would strike. But you know, he was his name was actually not Bundy. He was born Theodore Robert Cowell, and he's born November 24th of 1946 to Eleanor Louise Cowell. And he was actually born at the Elizabeth Lund Home for Unwed Mothers in Burlington, Vermont. And his father's identity has never actually been confirmed. By some accounts, his birth certificate assigns paternity to a salesman and United States Air Force veteran named Lloyd Marshall, although according to others, the father is listed as unknown. So at this point, don't know for sure who his dad is. But Louise claimed that she'd been seduced by a war veteran named Jack Worthington, who abandoned her soon after she became pregnant.
They check records and can never find a name for that person in the military.
And then some family members, and this is according to the Wikipedia on this one.
This is gross.
So I don't know that it's legit.
I've heard it other places other than Wikipedia, though. It's not the only place I've heard it.
Probably. So anyways, there are other suspicions that Bundy might have been fathered by Louise's own father, Samuel Cowell. But there's no material evidence has been cited to support that kind of a claim. But either way, he was born at this home for unwed mothers. And we were actually explaining about this to our daughter, how back in those old days, those older times, it wasn't as socially acceptable to be a unwed mother.
No.
And so...
No, there was a lot of teenage girls that went away and had children in those... That's why those places existed, was for them to go and give birth to these kids in secret. So Ted was brought home and was actually raised thinking his mom was his sister for the first 3 years of his life.
Oh, wow.
Jeez. Yeah.
Well, she wasn't even going to keep him.
No. And so his grandparents claimed that they adopted him, and that's why there was such an age difference between him and his sister, with quotation marks, because it was actually grandma and grandpa raising him, not mom and dad.
And that was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, it was in Philadelphia. That was for I think he was there for 3 years.
3 years, the first 3 years of his life. And everybody was just told it was her. That his mom was his oldest sister.
He didn't find that out until years later. I mean, I think he found that out.
He said he found out in 1969 is what he wrote that he actually found out.
He didn't know that for a really long time.
So that was just before he started his spree. I mean, if he was born in 46, do some quick math for me, Josh. 69 minus 46. That's
23.
23. So he was full-blown adult when he finally figured out, knew who his mom really was. And
well, he found it.
Well, he knew it was his mom because eventually he found, because when he was 3, she moved from Philadelphia to Washington, and that's where she met, what's his name, John Bundy?
Possibly. Check your notes on that. I don't have that right here in mind.
Nope, that's blank.
Yeah, Johnny Culpepper Bundy. And that's where he got his last name Bundy, was from his stepfather, who actually ended up adopting him. So he ended up being raised after, by his real mom. But he didn't know that he was a bastard child, as they claim.
Not until later.
Not until he was in his 20s. And then, but for his first 3 years of his life, his mother was actually his sister. But I don't think he has memories of calling her his sister. But
probably not at 3. Most people don't remember anything before, usually 4.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of messed up a little bit, but he didn't really know the truth about that until he was in his 20s.
And because of that, he did actually resent his mom.
Once he found out, he was
He
mad.
expressed a lifelong resentment towards his mother for never talking to him about his real father and for leaving him to discover his true parentage for himself. Which would lead me to believe that he knew who his father was. I don't know. But he did, as a kid, occasionally exhibit disturbing behavior at an early age. Louise's younger sister, Julia, recalled awaking from a nap to find herself surrounded by knives from the kitchen and a 3-year-old Ted standing by the bed smiling.
That would freak me out.
Creepy!
Super creepy.
All I can think of is I think of like Chucky, but I think of like the kid that was... You remember the movie Problem Child?
Yes.
Yeah.
I can see that kid in my head just standing there with this evil grin and a little bow tie. And just like,
Well, and then
hi.
I mean, I know he only lived with his grandfather for 3 years, but his grandfather was also very mean. Like
Yeah.
he would grab cats by their tail and whip them around. And there was one time he pushed one of his daughters down the stairs for waking up late one morning, and so he was raised kind of in a hostile environment from his grandpa.
Well, and there's reports that he was abused, right?
Yes.
By his grandfather.
Yeah, who
Physically
he thought
and
was his
emotionally.
dad.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But he identified with, respected, and clung to him. And then in 1987, he told other family members and attorneys that Samuel was a tyrannical bully and a bigot who hated blacks, Italians, Catholics, and Jews, and he beat his wife and the family dog regularly and swung neighborhood cats by their tails.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not a cat lover. I come to your house, I would never abuse anybody's cats. I would never do that to any
No
animals.
animal deserves to be
No,
abused.
no. It's like it's one thing to not really want to cuddle with one, but at the same time, you don't abuse them.
I can never imagine picking a cat up by a tail.
I can't
and
imagine
swinging it
beating a
around my
dog.
head.
See, I'm a dog guy, so it's like I can't imagine beating a dog.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing any
Now,
of that.
beating your wife, for example, now that might be a little more justice. Just kidding, babe. Whatever. She beats me.
That I believe.
No. She's so much stronger than I am. No, I think violence is just uncalled for in any circumstance, in any relationship. So if you're hitting people, stop it. But he sometimes, apparently sometimes he once threw his wife down the a flight of stairs for oversleeping.
No, it was his sister. It was his daughter.
His daughter, okay.
It was Julia that went down the flight of stairs.
This was the one that woke up with all the knives pointed around her. And then he at least once flew into a violent rage when the questions of Bundy's paternity was raised. And Bundy described his grandmother as a timid and obedient woman who periodically underwent electroconvulsive therapy for depression and was afraid to leave the house towards the end of her life.
Oh, the good stuff we used to do to people.
Yeah.
See, with him getting so upset when anybody ever questioned the paternity of Ted makes me wonder if he really was the father.
Which means he didn't just beat people, he also probably raped his daughter. I hope not. I hope that's not the case. But
Yeah.
in this day and age,
You never know.
it takes a lot to surprise anybody anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but in 1950, Louise changed her last name from Cowell to Nelson, and at the urging of multiple family members, they left Philadelphia with Ted and went to live with cousins in Tacoma, Washington. I've never been to Washington. Has anybody at the table here been to Washington before?
We lived
They
there.
just-
I
We're
know, right?
It's a segue, honey.
That was a segue. I was kind of introducing that.
And Tacoma's
You
beautiful.
guys lived in Washington.
Tacoma's actually a beautiful city.
All I know is it's just south of Seattle. Jamie's like, eh.
I don't particularly agree, but not from what I've
Well,
seen.
it's not Spokane. I mean, come on.
Oh, Spokane. Ugh.
That's
See,
a dumpster.
I thought you liked Spokane.
No.
Let's say we used to like Spokane.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's fair.
So, but it is one of the sites of the world's fair of one of the world's fairs.
In Tacoma?
No,
Oh,
Spokane.
Washington. Oh, was it?
Yeah,
I thought it was in Seattle.
70 something.
yeah,
I thought that's what the
74?
Space Needle was for.
yeah. So Seattle had one, and Spokane had one.
Really? I did not know that. Color me educated. Look at that. All right. Well, anyway, in 1951, she met Johnny Culpepper Bundy, as Terry had mentioned. He was a hospital cook and an adult singles. She met him at an adult singles night at Tacoma's First Methodist Church, and they married later that year. Johnny adopted Ted, and they conceived 4 children together. So Ted's little siblings, which he probably tormented. I don't know.
I don't think so. He didn't like being with the family.
But he would later complain to his girlfriend that Johnny wasn't his real father and that he wasn't very bright and he didn't make much money.
Oh, he resented him for just being a cook.
Well, we can't all be rock stars. So, he said in interviews that it was a kind of a normal childhood. You know, he'd go out and all the kids were out playing in the yards and everybody would go out and play, and they'd go play in clearings and whatnot. And
he's a self-proclaimed expert bullfrog catcher.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
he says he was very good at catching bullfrogs, and he could see the little bulging of the eyes just above the water and snatch them up. So
Yep.
Because you hear stories of serial killers starting with like animals.
yeah.
But there's nothing of him ever doing that. So if he was
No.
an expert catcher of, did he kill these?
No, it was just like kids going out catching. Like I did this as a kid too. I'd
Oh,
catch.
every
Release.
kid goes out there.
You catch a bullfrog. You're
Catch a
like
bullfrog
You're like,
and-
look, I got a frog, and then you put it back, and then you go catch another one. Why? I have
That's what
no
kids
idea.
do.
It's entertaining when you're a kid.
Kids these
know.
days would never know what to do to
We
catch
used
a
to go-
bullfrog.
we used to go catch newts and frogs when I was a kid, but you let them go.
Yeah.
But one of the other things he started doing when he was a child
He
there in
became
Tacoma,
a peeping Tom.
he quoted, or he is quoted by his one of his lawyers. Her name was Polly Nelson. She says that he had confessed to her that he would roam the neighborhood picking through trash barrels in search of pictures of naked women, and that he perused detective magazines, crime novels, and true crime documentaries for stories that involved sexual violence, and particularly when the stories were illustrated with pictures of dead or maimed women.
This would have happened around 13, 14, right?
Yeah, about there.
Yeah. Seeing a pattern.
Yeah, kind of as a teenager.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's not uncommon for teenage boys to seek out pornography. I mean, it's
No.
not, it's when your hormones are starting to rage and pictures of naked women are exciting. However, to go into the, searching for true crime stuff where, especially where you can find pictures of dead or maimed women, that's going a little...
That is.
That's the next level.
When that's where your jollies come from, then...
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. What are you going to say, Terry?
No, I was just gonna say, like, typically when you've done studies on serial killers and stuff, most of them end up having some kind of a damage to their frontal lobe. He never had that,
No.
Right.
and he never had the torture of animals like some of the other ones did.
No.
So he doesn't quite fit that mold of most serial killers
No.
in the young child age.
Right. But he does have one thing that's in common with Richard Ramirez and a lot of other serial killers is that at puberty, right, sex and violence start to merge and become, that eroticism of violence.
They want that bondage, just like very aggressive sex.
Right.
Yeah.
And so because of that's the same thing that Ramirez had with Ramirez's cousin was showing him those pictures and stuff. And so it's kind of a similar pattern. The only difference is he didn't have a good cousin to show him all that stuff. He had to
Yeah.
go find it himself.
Yeah, well, see, and Ramirez was a peeping Tom and would hide in closet at the hotel that he was working at and stuff too. So
Right.
they have the peeping Tom thing in common.
Yeah.
But most of them,
Yeah.
you usually hear of some kind of a frontal lobe damage where
Right.
Bundy never had that.
He did not.
It says that he said that he would consume large quantities of alcohol and canvass the community late at night in search of undraped windows where he could just observe women undressing or whatever else could be seen, quote unquote. And it's like, well, yeah, we've all happened upon that where it's like, whoa, you guys should close your blinds. But I don't know, maybe it was a lot more common in that time.
Well, if you look at Back to the Future, it seemed to be a little more common.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at the time frame, and back then people didn't lock their doors. They left their keys in their cars. Nothing was ever locked up.
Yeah. It was considered a much safer time.
Yeah.
He also said he chose to be alone as an adolescent because he was unable to understand interpersonal relationships. He claimed that he had no natural sense of how to develop friendships.
He didn't know how to love. He didn't know how to care.
He says, I didn't know what made people want to be friends. I didn't know what underlay social interactions. But even though through that, people in high school said that he was well known and he was well liked there. He was a medium-sized fish in a large pond,
And
which is just like probably most of us,
Yeah.
right?
And he went on exactly one date in high school.
No, he never did the dances. He never did anything.
No.
So
And he
Wait,
had a great quote with
I
that.
didn't either.
He said, it's not that I didn't like women. He He's like, I just didn't have an inkling of what to do with them.
That's creepy.
Yeah.
Right?
I can kind of relate to that to a point of like, I liked women. I was always just afraid of them. I was afraid to ask them.
Right.
You know, it's just like, 'cause I don't know. So I didn't go on a lot of dates in high school either. So I can relate to that. But I knew why people wanted to be friends. I don't know. Maybe I'm a serial killer. I'm going to go through all this and we're like,
Dun,
wow,
dun, dun.
Mike's actually a serial killer. He just didn't even know it. I'm like the serial killer that never happened. But his only significant athletic avocation was downhill skiing. He liked skiing, which is something you can do on your own, right? And he pursued it enthusiastically with stolen equipment and forged lift tickets. And during high school, he was arrested at least twice on suspicion of burglary and auto theft. And then when he reached the age of 18, the details of the incidents were expunged from his record, as is customary in Washington and many other U.S. states. So cops weren't anything foreign to him as a teenager. So
Well, he was obviously already stealing cars and he'd already started kind of a life of crime.
And once you get caught and then you get off,
You know what to expect.
why not go do it again? I'm just going to get off again, right?
Yeah, but he kind of ratcheted that up. And
And isn't that how you got started in your life of crime?
yeah, I started small.
Started small?
Yeah, gumballs.
Yeah. The ones you found on the ground.
Yeah, they were already chewed first.
I started
but
with-
then I worked to the unchewed ones.
Yeah.
The ones that were stuck on the bottom of the table.
Yeah.
I started with cigarettes, stealing them from the ashtrays outside the convenience store.
I used to smoke.
Just kidding.
I used to smoke like 20 packs of candy cigarettes a day.
That's a pretty big habit, dude.
Candy cigarettes even exist anymore?
They do. They do.
Did they really?
Yeah.
You got to buy them novelty style, but
They
Oh
do
my gosh,
exist.
that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Josh and I aren't criminals that you know of. I don't know. Maybe that's the kind of the point of this episode is that serial killers, sometimes it's the unassuming.
yeah, especially with this one.
So after graduating from high school in 1965, he attended the University of Puget Sound before transferring to the University of Washington to study Chinese. And then in 67, he became romantically involved with a University of Washington classmate, and most commonly referred to as Stephanie Brooks by accounts. And then in 68, he dropped out of college, worked a series of minimum wage jobs, like most people. And he got involved with politics and became a campaign person for Arthur, the lieutenant governor of the state, running for lieutenant governor of the state.
Because he wanted to either do politics or be a lawyer. That was his what he wanted to do.
So he was a driver and a bodyguard.
He he loved the limelight of what he was doing with the politics stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, he enjoyed it immensely because it got him one thing that most men crave at that age
Attention.
from women,
Ladies.
and a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
And well-dressed, too. There's not like you find, trashy girls at political conventions.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay, I take that back. It's probably in our day and age, it's probably where you find the worst people.
Well, all those women are in the back.
True. Okay. But the funny thing about that comment is that he became Arthur Fletcher's driver and bodyguard. We were talking before we started recording about how the interesting thing is all the times that Bundy got caught, it was for driving infractions, traffic
Getting
stops.
pulled over, yeah.
So he even went to like the 1968 Republican National Convention in Miami as a Rockefeller delegate. So anyway, he goes back to Washington, fall of 69. He meets Elizabeth, and I can never say her name right. I think it's Clofer. And so I'm just going to say that, Elizabeth Clofer. And she was a single mother from Ogden, Utah. So there's our first Utah connection. And she worked as a secretary at the University School of Medicine. And they had kind of a stormy, tumultuous relationship, but it would last well throughout the rest of his life for the most part.
Yeah, it's really an on again, off again thing.
And it was long distance most of the time, too.
Yeah.
They had a weird relationship.
They did. And that's where the movie, if you watch the movie, The Wickedly Vile Evil, I can't even remember the name of this movie because it's so weird. Shockingly Evil, Wickedly Vile, and it's the Zac Efron one. I'll just say it that way. But that's where that movie starts, is with him meeting her and then going home with her. And
It's extremely wicked, shockingly evil, and vile.
I'm never going to remember it.
It is an awful name for a movie.
This is your job. If you do nothing else tonight, your job is to correct me every time I say that
It is an awful
wrong.
name for a movie, just like that massive weight of unbearable talent is a horrible name for a movie.
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. That's the new Nicolas Cage movie that just came out.
Whoever thinks of these names for these movies, I don't.
Yeah, they should just go with something easy like Batman.
They could have just called it Extremely Wicked, but it's Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile.
See, The Deliberate Stranger worked when it was the Mark Harmon one.
But
anyway, I digress. But anyway, so Bundy becomes a father figure to Clofer's daughter, Molly, who was 3 when he started dating her mom. And he remained in her life until she was age 10, after he'd been arrested. And then as an adult, Molly wrote of incidents in which Bundy was actually sexually inappropriate with her, including indecent exposure and sexual touching disguised as games. So, creeper kind of stepfather-in-law, maybe, or not in-law, but
Stepfather.
They
never got married, though.
No, they never got married. He was just a father
boyfriend,
figure.
Father, yeah.
Uncle Ted.
And then in mid-1970, he kind of gets focused again and a little more goal-oriented, and he re-enrolls at the University of Washington, this time as a psychology major. And he became an honor student and was well-regarded by his professors. And, in fact, he actually took a job at the Seattle Suicide Hotline Crisis Center.
Remember how many people he talked off the ledge of killing themselves, and then he would go and kill people himself?
Right.
That makes no sense to me.
Well, there he meets another woman named Anne Rule, who was a former Seattle police officer and an aspiring crime writer. And she would write biographies and stuff. And she even wrote one called The Stranger Beside Me about him. But she saw nothing disturbing about his personality at the time. She described him as kind, solicitous, and empathetic. And then after graduating from University of Washington in 1972, he joined another election campaign. Let's kind of fast forward through his stuff. Let's get to the good stuff. He wanted to become a lawyer, but he had mediocre LSAT scores. And instead of going to any of the prestigious
He couldn't get accepted
law
into any of
schools.
the good law schools.
Yeah.
Which,
Couldn't even get into UW.
Yeah, he couldn't get into anything. He didn't have the grades. He didn't have the test scores.
So he was accepted he was accepted into the law schools of the University of Puget Sound, which is up there in Washington, and the University of Utah, only on the strength of letters of recommendation from these political persons, like Governor Daniel Evans had given him a letter of recommendation, and then several of his psych professors. So I think it's funny that he gets a letter of recommendation from psych professors to get into law school, because that's clout, right?
They're close.
So during a trip to California on a Republican business party thing in summer of 1973, he rekindled his relationship with another person.
Okay, this is not just another person. This is this was his MO. This was the girlfriend that all of his victims looked like. It was all based off of this one.
And her name was, this was Stephanie Brooks.
Stephanie Brooks.
Yep.
Because they were together, and he was all in with her because she had status. She came from money. It was everything that he wanted in his life. And then she broke it off, said he was too immature, and he didn't have direction in his life, and broke up with him. And so then he rekindled the relationship with her, and pretty much led her on. Like it was a slow game for him. Courted her, proved to her he got his life back together. They fell back in love. He actually proposed to her, and then he ghosted her.
Meanwhile, he's also dating Elizabeth Clofer.
He's still with Liz.
And neither woman was aware of the other's existence.
That's because there wasn't social media that they could check up on and see all the pictures being posted.
No.
Add 2-timer to the list.
Right?
Yeah.
But in 74, Bundy abruptly broke off all the contact with Brooks. That's what she was saying.
This is where he broke it off. He wouldn't answer her phone calls. He wouldn't reply to her letters. She finally got a hold of him on the phone, and she demanded to know why he just completely cut her off. In a very flat, calm voice, he just replied, "Stephanie, I have no idea what you mean," and then hung up the phone, and she never heard from him again. And then he later admitted that he deliberately planned the entire courtship and rejection as vengeance of the breakup that she initiated in 68.
What a prick.
So it was all a long game just to get her back for what she did to him. And then from there on out, all of his victims were based off of what she looked like.
Yeah.
And so after that, he starts skipping classes at law school in Puget Sound. By April, he stops attending entirely as the young women begin to disappear in the Pacific Northwest area. So, background on Theodore Robert Cowell Nelson Bundy III Esquire. I don't know. You just keep going with that when people change their names. So there's no consensus on where Bundy began killing women. He told different stories to different people and always refused to divulge the specifics of his earliest crimes, even as he confessed in graphic detail to dozens of later murders, in the days before his execution. He told Nelson, which is one of Polly Nelson was one of his lawyers, he told her that he had attempted his first kidnapping in 1969 in Ocean City, New Jersey, but he didn't kill anyone until sometime in 71 in Seattle. He told a psychologist that he had killed 2 women in Atlantic City while visiting a family in Philadelphia in 69. So that's kind of like contradicting stories. And then he handed to homicide detective Robert Keppel. Now, this is the guy in Washington that took him down at Washington. And then it was actually, he comes along later as well. He actually flies down to Florida and interviews him in prison as well. And we'll get into that story a little bit later. But he had hinted to him that he had also had another murder in 73 that involved a hitchhiker near Tumwater. And I'm assuming that's Washington.
Yep.
But he refused to elaborate on it. But Stephanie Rule and Keppel both believe that he might have started killing as a teenager. His earliest documented homicides were committed in 74 when he was 27 years old. And by his own admission, he by then had mastered the necessary skills in the area before DNA profiling to leave minimal incriminating forensic evidence. So he says, I'd mastered the art of leaving nothing behind. So you got to practice to master that, right?
Yeah, that's true.
It's like being a golfer, right? You don't just, I'm a great golfer. No, it takes lots of time on a golf course to hone those skills.
What do you have, Jamie?
Yeah.
For the first of his murders there.
January 4th, 1974.
Perfect.
Bundy beats University of Washington student Karen Sparks at her Seattle home. So she was actually one of the only survivors of his brutal attacks, but she suffers permanent brain damage. So
he ruined her life.
Yeah.
So he basically just beat her to a pulp and
Left her for dead.
But she survived.
With a metal rod from her bed frame.
Oh,
that
wow,
he
yeah.
sodomized her with.
And then he sexually assaulted her with it, either the same rod or a metal speculum, causing extensive internal injuries.
That's so disgusting.
Yeah.
And she remained unconscious for 10 days. But like you said, she did live with permanent physical and mental disabilities.
Yep.
Jeez.
And the next was when?
February 1st, 1974.
About a month later.
Yeah. Linda Ann Healy. So she was also another undergrad of WU. So she vanished from her off-campus home in the early morning. And then her remains were later found a year later on Taylor Mountain.
Wasn't she the weather girl?
She was
Yes.
the morning radio weather and the skiing reports.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so all the reporters that are reporting about these women going missing, very personal to them because this is one of their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With her, he beat her unconscious, dressed her in blue jeans and a white blouse and boots, and then carried her away.
clothes.
He changed her clothes after
Made the
she was
bed.
dead.
That's weird.
So her roommates heard her alarm go off and just
Yeah.
thought she got up and went to school, and they went in to go check her room, and they didn't realize anything had happened to her until they pulled back the bedspread and saw the blood stains.
Yeah.
And the police reported it as just a little bit of blood.
Yeah, but did you see those photos?
It was not a little.
That
Yeah.
was not a little bit of
Well,
blood.
they were probably guys that didn't know anything about it, and like, oh, she just had a heavy.
Up by
I
her
was
head.
assuming.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. But that happens at your pillow, right?
Right? You
Just
when
I
you
don't know.
sleep, you fold your body in half so your butt and crotch are up. by
I'm
your
trying to
head.
give them the benefit of the doubt of why they wouldn't be so like, holy crap, this is a murder scene. You know,
Because obviously he cared enough for his victims after he killed them to fix them up, do their hair, do their makeup. He would go back and revisit them, redo their makeup, redo their hair.
Oh, messed up.
Oh, it's twisted.
Oh, it's twisted. It's really twisted.
It's not just a get in, do
Not
it, and
just
then walk
necrophilia.
away.
There was more than just necrophilia. I mean, he actually cared for these corpses, and he would
He
go,
loved them.
He would go and visit them, and like I said, redo their makeup, redo their hair. He changed their clothes. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a life-size human doll. It's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was also Bundy's first proven murder, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So during the first half of 1974, female college students disappeared at the rate of about one per month.
It's a lot.
And then
It really shook the campus, right? Because if you think about it, this had never really happened before.
No. It shook the whole state. People were buying guns for self-defense. I mean, everybody was living on the edge, worried about their daughters, because
People are just disappearing.
people are disappearing. I mean, at a high rate.
Yeah, one a month is a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
So some of those first ones there up there in Washington, just to run through them. March 12th, Donna Gail Manson, a 19-year-old student from the Evergreen State College in Olympia, which is just 60 miles southwest of Seattle, left her dormitory to attend a jazz concert on a campus, but she never arrived. On April 17th, so this is about a month later, a little over a month later, Susan Elaine Rancourt disappeared while on her way to her dorm after an evening with advisors at the college that she was at. This was 110 miles southeast of Seattle, so he's kind of branching out a little bit further. Two female Central Washington students later came forward to report encounters with this guy. On the night of Rancourt's disappearance, and then the other one was 3 nights earlier. The man wearing a sling, he was asking for help carrying a load of books to his brown or tan Volkswagen Beetle. And then on May 6th, Roberta Kathleen Parks left her dormitory at Oregon State University in Corvallis and to have coffee with friends, but she never arrived. Investigators from Seattle and King County grew increasingly concerned. All these women are missing. There's no physical evidence. And it just kind of keeps going from there.
To the epic July 14th.
And the only thing they had, and it says that there's no significant evidence other than the common things were that they were attractive, white college students with long hair parted in the middle. Then there was a Brenda Carol Ball, 22, who disappeared, leaving the Flame Tavern in Burien near Seattle. She was last seen in the parking lot talking to a brown-haired man with his arm in a sling. June 11th.
It's the cat.
Singing the song
Another
of the
song
people.
of his
Georgiana
people.
Hawkins vanishes, walking down a brightly lit alley between her boyfriend's dorm and her sorority house. Next morning, yeah, it just kind of goes on and on and on. And
It's crazy.
But then we get to July 14th. Lake
Sammamish.
Like
Sammamish. And I can't believe that he actually did this in broad daylight. Broad daylight.
It's actually the part that there's two things. One, it's kind of impressive.
And how many people were there?
40,000.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And he even used his real name.
Yes.
Can you help me load
I
my
don't
boat?
Get
Yeah.
this. Like, use a fake name. Come on.
But I was gonna say the thing that he knew though is because of his work with the campaigns, and he did some work with the police department. He actually knew how the police departments kind of operated and what their weaknesses were.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was able to actually exploit it, and knew that even using his real name,
Mm-hmm.
he was still going to get away with it because there just wasn't enough to go off of.
Yeah. 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 He He was smart. I will give him credit for that.
Cunning.
Well,
Yeah.
Here's what's creepy about that last one, though, is the one that he'd abducted from the Bright Alley before he got to a sorority house. He handcuffed her, drove her to Issaquah, which is about 20 miles east of Seattle, where he strangled her, and then spent the entire night laying in his car with her body. And then he later returned to University of Washington Alley the morning after, and in the midst of a very, very major crime scene investigation, located and gathered her earrings and one of her shoes that he had left behind in the adjoining parking lot, and then he had departed unobserved. Nobody even saw him doing this, which apparently was a feat so brazen that the police today still can't figure out how he was able to do that. And then he went back and he revisited her corpse 3 times.
Yeah.
And
Jeez Louise.
with the stuff that he would do, I'm sure it wasn't just revisiting and just kind of,
Right.
just being amongst the body. He actually cared, like Teri said, he cared for them. Yeah.
So July 14th.
July 14th. What you got, Jamie?
What do I
Yeah,
got?
take us there.
So Bundy then
There we
kills 2 college students. Janice, I think it's Ott.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And Denise, my handwriting's bad. Machino?
Denise Nosland?
Yeah,
Naslin?
Naslin.
Noslin?
Oh, yeah, my handwriting's awful.
Your handwriting is beautiful. I like your
It's-
handwriting.
My brother told me I have the handwriting of a serial killer.
No, you don't.
Well, it's perfect that you're actually
Years ago.
Or it could be
Yeah.
the handwriting of a 17th or 18th century politician.
Yeah, serial
That's
killer.
even worse.
No,
Same
it's
thing,
like,
right?
look at that. It's like the Declaration of Independence. I can't read it. Thankfully, they have it in print, and I'll just take your word for what it says. But anyway, so, yeah, tell us about what happened with these ladies. Where were they at? Okay.
They're a lake.
Sammamish.
Thank you.
Samamish.
Oh, this is
Josh,
the lake
this
one.
is, this
This
is
is
your
the lake
job.
one.
Yeah.
Your job is to pronounce the lake.
Well, which is,
Terry's job is to remember the movie title.
I will tell you guys a funny story.
Have you been here?
I've never been to Lake.
Okay.
Wait, I've been by Lake Sammamish. I haven't
Okay.
been to Lake Sammamish. But when we first moved to Western Washington, we lived in a town called Olympia, right?
Uh-huh.
And I worked a job where I traveled a lot to a lot of different cities. And there's a town in Western Washington called Puyallup.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. For the first month and a half that I lived there, I pronounced it Puyallup.
Yeah, because isn't that where, what's his name from Utah ended up at? It'll come back to me. Continue, Josh.
Yeah. But it's spelled exactly that way. It's Pullyyaup. And so I'm like, that's Puyallup.
Wait.
It's really Puyallup.
So how do you spell or how do you pronounce like Polyarny, like the Polyarny Inlet?
I have no
Hunt
idea.
for Red October. Anyway. Or Pyongyang. Is it Pyongyang?
Pyongyang, China.
Yeah, I can't do long names. And in fact, so I served as a missionary in New England, and everything back there is like the Kwanzaa, the Narragansett Indians, and
Oh,
I can't pronounce any of those things. I lived on Pequamascut.
That's brutal.
Yeah. It's like I like it back out here easier. They have numbers in Utah.
We also have Thule.
Tooele. It's like, yeah, I live off of 21st South and 30 East.
Yeah.
Much easier for my simple brain.
Yeah, Josh Powell
Oh, yeah.
ended up there. Yeah.
He lived in Puyallup.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Puyallup.
Yeah, Puyallup.
Woohoo!
Yeah, but it's spelled Puy, so I can see where
Yeah.
Allup.
Pull-ups.
Yeah.
Yeah. Josh, that's where Josh Powell ran away with his sons after Susan went missing.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So with
Anyways.
these two ladies
Anyways,
at
so-
Lake
Lake
Sammamish.
Sammamish.
State Park in Issaquah, 5 female witnesses described an attractive young man wearing a white tennis outfit and his arm in a sling, speaking with a light accent, which I don't know what that means. It says perhaps Canadian or British. Introducing himself as Ted, and he asked for their help in unloading a sailboat from his tan or bronze-colored Volkswagen.
No, didn't
Beetle.
he need help loading the cell
Loading it.
onto?
Loading it. Yeah.
It said unloading.
Yeah,
on
it was
the-
loading. It
Yeah,
was
it's
loading it
loading it.
onto.
4 refused, but one
Smart
accompanied.
girls.
Right, but one accompanied him as far as his car, saw that there was no sailboat, and fled.
Smart.
3 additional witnesses saw him approach Janice Ann Ott, who was a probation caseworker at the time, and used the sailboat story on her, and then watched her leave the beach in his company. About 4 hours later, Denise Naslund, she was at a picnic there, went to go to the restroom and never returned.
60 feet.
Yeah.
From where her friends were at to the bathrooms where she went to.
And she never came back.
No. And then they even report her talking to a man, nice looking man named Ted.
With his arm in a sling.
With his arm in a sling.
Yeah.
Or a cast. Actually, I think they reported it as a cast. But still, like you're 60 feet from people.
Right.
That is not far.
No.
So Bundy later told other reporters and investigators that Ott was still alive when he returned with Naslund.
Yeah.
And that he forced one to watch as he murdered the other.
Yeah.
But then he later denied that.
There's no proof. There's been rumors that he kept the girls alive while he brutally assaulted both of them and made them watch and then killed them both. But he's said it and he's denied it, and it's been back and forth.
His story's changed. Sometimes I think he liked the game of, I'll tell you one thing and then I'm going to tell you something completely different.
100%.
Just to see you squirm and go, wait, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The confusion factor.
I think it was all about the game. For him, it was more the game than it was the rest of it.
Yeah.
Because I think he got off on the post-violent sexual encounters.
I would imagine.
I think, with
He had
some
to have.
necrophilia.
He had to have.
That's kind of where I
And
think
why
more
else
of
would
it.
you do that kind of stuff? Obviously.
So they put out this police sketch from witness statements.
They finally had a sketch of him, and
the-
they had a very detailed description of his car.
And watching that documentary on Netflix, it's like, that guy looks nothing. The sketch looks nothing like him.
What sketches do, though?
And it's like,
yeah.
I think that's, in fact, even seeing that sketch on the news, Elizabeth Clover actually called the police and said, I think that's my boyfriend.
Oh, and they just tossed it in a pile.
And they tossed in a pile.
Didn't even pay attention to what she said.
Drives a Beetle.
Yeah, but there were, what did they say in the documentary? How many Volkswagen Beetles
gosh.
were in the state of
Oh my
Washington?
gosh,
It
it
was,
was
30,000 or something
Such
like
a
that. It was
popular car back then.
a ridiculous number, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, it's like, oh, yeah. It's like, what was he driving? A blue Ford?
Right.
Well, and he hadn't taken the front seat out of his Beetle out at this point yet.
I don't know. He did that.
He eventually did take the front seat out, the passenger seat out, so he could just knock him in the head and shove him in and drive away.
So
efficiency.
They were receiving
Yeah.
up to 200 tips per day.
Yeah.
With a staff of about 8 people or 8 or 10 people. So,
Didn't they narrow it down, though, to like 100?
yeah, they narrowed it down to 100 people that fit the description, that had known priors and things like that.
Yeah. And that's why they blew him off.
Right. Because he wasn't had anything. But they said that there was no way their staff could actually work the caseload effectively because they didn't have enough people. And obviously, there's no computers really back then to do the hard crunching. So they had to do all of this stuff by hand, and they just weren't equipped.
No. They said that it was hot. They thought it was very unlikely that a clean-cut law student with no criminal record would be the perpetrator. Unassuming.
Oh,
Yep.
my. Yeah.
On September 6th, 2 grouse hunters stumbled across the skeletal remains of Ott and Naslund near a service road in Issaquah, 2 miles east of Lake Sammamish State Park. I said it. I said Straight Park, though. Lake Sammamish State Park. And then there was an extra femur and several vertebrae found at the site that were later identified by Bundy as those of Hawkins, who he had spent the night in her body in the car with. And then 6 months later, forestry students from Green River Community College discovered the skulls and mandibles of Healy, Raincourt, Parks, Ball, all on Taylor Mountain, where Bundy frequently hiked. Yeah. In fact, I read on somewhere that at one point he had actually kept in his apartment 6 skulls, 6 heads. Because he got brutal. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself on some of these. But
Maybe,
there were
I
some
hadn't
of them that he had actually beheaded. There were 6 of them that he had actually cut off their heads with like a little hacksaw thing. And he kept them in his apartment in a bag.
Yeah, I heard of him beheading some of them. I just didn't realize he kept them in his apartment.
Well, no,
some
because
of them. So
yeah, we'll get because he mentioned he actually decapitated one of them and then took the head 20 yards down the road and tossed it on the other side of the road.
he said 25 to 50.
And I read
Yeah.
one, and it may be somewhere else in down here further in my notes. I'd read somewhere that he had burned some and incinerated them in Elizabeth Clofer's fireplace.
Well, see, what gets me is how many bodies were never found.
Oh yeah,
There were some of his victims that have still to this day never been found,
Yeah.
which is, I don't.
Well, because he didn't bury them, so
No.
he like the the skulls and stuff that they found, right? He just dumped the bodies in the woods and let the nature take its course.
Yeah,
Essentially,
but see, he would scout out where he was going to dump the bodies way before he ever took the bodies there and made sure that they were like where they would not be found.
yeah.
But, so where did he go after this?
he came to Utah.
He came to Utah.
Came to our state.
Yay!
August 30th. Yeah.
August of 74.
Yep.
He received a second acceptance from the University of Utah Law School and moved to Salt Lake City.
All of
leaving-
you great
leaving
U of U fans out there.
Clofer's
We're
Coyotes.
all just dying inside.
He left Clofer in Seattle, but he called her often, and he dated at least a dozen other women while he was here. That was in quotes. At least a dozen. And then he later studied, and then he studied first year law curriculum a second time. So basically, started off his whole law study stuff. He was devastated to find out that the other students had something, some intellectual capacity that he didn't. And he found that the classes were completely incomprehensible. He couldn't understand what was going on. And he said it was a great disappointment to him. So law school's not going so well because it's like all of a sudden these people are like really smart. And he don't get it.
Well, you go from the University of Puget Sound, which is a rinky-dink tiny college.
I'd never heard of it until I watched the
To the University of Utah.
Yeah, to the University of Utah. The University of Puget Sound, I believe, is just west of Olympia, Washington. I've been by its campus, so it's tiny.
And
It's
not
not
every
big.
school is huge. And even Utah is not like a big name, but it is a lot bigger.
Yeah, it is a Pac-12 school, so
Well,
has
it is now.
Yeah, it has a little bit of clout.
Not till 2010. But anyway, it does add more clout. It does actually is known as a better law school, unless you're a BYU fan, and then they
Accordingly, people that I've talked to, BYU has a better law school.
BYU has a much better law school. Utah is actually a much better medicine program. That's what they're known for, medical and science. Anyway, this is the 70s. This is before all that. Before Utah was cool. And then a new string of homicides after he comes here began happening the following month, including two that would remain undiscovered until Bundy actually confessed to them shortly before he was executed. So on September 2nd, he raped and strangled a still unidentified hitchhiker in Idaho.
He's claiming.
He's claiming. And then he either disposed of the remains immediately in a nearby river or returned the next day to photograph and dismember the corpse. Story changed depending on who he was telling the story to. On October 2nd, so that's like a month later. So it's kind of like most of these are happening about a month apart.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was like
That was kind of what he did. It was
maybe it
one
was
a
like
month.
with the moon.
pattern.
I wonder.
Or it was just that time of the month for him.
I don't know. Knowing biology, I'm curious. I wonder if did these all happen on a certain cycle part of the moon?
I don't know.
I think I have a theory to that, but I'm going to hold off.
Okay,
until
hold
we-
off.
to get closer to
Don't
the end.
forget. I want to hear
Don't
it.
forget, I'm curious. So then October 2nd, he abducts a 16-year-old Nancy Wilcox in Holiday, Utah.
That was his youngest so far, right?
So far, I
Yeah.
believe, yeah. She was, Holiday is a suburb of Salt Lake. It's here in the Salt Lake Valley. Bundy informed investigators that her remains were buried near Capitol Reef National Park, which is about 200 miles south of Salt Lake, but they never found her remains. But he claimed, I did that, and said where he bought it. Then October 18th, so this is not a month, this is like 2 weeks later.
Just a couple weeks later.
Melissa Ann Smith, do you want to talk about her?
She was a 17-year-old daughter of the police chief from Midvale, which is another Salt Lake suburb. She disappeared after leaving a pizza parlor. Her nude body was found in a nearby mountainous area. 9 days later, post-mortem examination indicated that she may have remained alive for up to 7 days following her disappearance. So he kept her alive for a while.
Jeez.
And then on October 31st, Halloween. Lara, I don't know how to
Laura and Amy.
Amy, who was also 17, disappeared 25 miles south of there in Lehigh after leaving the
Which is
cafe.
Like where we are now at the
Yeah.
at
Just up the road.
Jamie's house here.
Just down the road.
Yeah. Her naked body was found by hitchhikers 9 miles to the northeast of American Fork Canyon on Thanksgiving Day. So she was found almost a month later. Both girls had been beaten, raped, sodomized, and strangled with nylon stockings. Years later, Bundy described his post-mortem rituals with the corpse of Smith and Amy, including their hair shampooing and application of makeup.
Wow.
So once again, he's caring for these bodies post-mortem.
It's like a salon. It's like
For
sitting,
the
I wonder if
dead.
it's like sitting there washing their hair and lathering it and then like talking to them and
Kind of like what they do in the funeral
In a
homes,
funeral
you
home?
know?
Yeah.
See, now this wouldn't be quite as weird to me. I mean, well, it would be okay. It would be weird, but it wouldn't be quite as weird to me him doing these things if he was somebody who worked in a funeral home and knew how to
Yeah.
care for a body. I could almost kind of see that as kind of a preparation of like, your last beautification thing before I send you off into the other world. I mean, I guess I could see it. I don't necessarily understand it, but I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't relate to that, but it would make more sense.
It would
Yeah.
make more sense if he was a mortician by trade, but
But he's
Wasn't the
not.
one
So he-
killing
but he's
them.
not.
Yeah.
He's not. See, the next one,
This is all you, Terry.
this one hits really close to home. Really close to home for us. This is the one that he captured and she got away. My mom actually went to high school with this girl, and she was approached at Fashion Place Mall, which is literally
2 blocks from our house.
2 blocks from our house. Bundy approached her pretending to be a Murray police officer and said that someone had attempted to break into her car, and he asked her to accompany him to the station to file a complaint. And when Carol Durange pointed out to Bundy that at first she was very leery about going with him. She asked to see a badge. Bundy had a badge. Where he got a badge, I have no idea.
well, the badges at that time weren't
Uh-huh.
actually like normal badges. They were just like paper.
I know that's what our driver's licenses were like back then, but
Yeah.
were police badges the same way?
Yeah, that was the report.
So he produced a police badge, and she kind of figured he was undercover because he was driving a
Volkswagen.
Volkswagen Beetle. And so she agreed to go with him, even though she didn't, feel like anything had happened to her car. And when Bundy was driving her to the police station, she made a comment that he was driving down a road that didn't lead to a police station. He immediately pulled over under the shoulder and attempted to handcuff her. And in their struggle, he accidentally put both of the handcuffs on the same wrist versus one on the other. So she was not handcuffed to anything. She was handcuffed to the
Herself.
to the same wrist. And so she was able to get the car door open and escape and get away. And so with her getting away, they now had a very detailed description of what he looked like. She could tell, she could identify him. But then after that, since he was so irate, she got away. He got a 17-year-old student at Viewmont High School in Bountiful, just 20 miles north of Murray.
Which was just across the street, really, from the Anson Call House.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's very close.
yeah. And so, and when we were watching the documentary, it made it look like he tried to take her to the school parking lot, to a school that's right by our house. Because we kind of lived
For Carol Durange.
Carol Durange, the one that got
Yeah.
away. When he pulled over and tried to handcuff her, we lived kind of between 2 different elementary schools. Our daughter had the choice of going to Liberty or to McMillan. And in the documentary, they made it look like he had taken her to McMillan Elementary.
That's what I read that in some of the reports that it was McMillan Elementary,
Yeah.
and that's what your mom had said when she was talking about it.
Yeah.
Which is not. It's like a couple blocks away from the mall. It is kind of towards the police station, but the fastest way to be go down to State Street, which is the
The
big
police
main
station's
street.
right off of State Street.
Right. Which Fashion Place Mall is right off
Fashion
the
Place
state.
is right off
Yeah.
of State Street.
So
Yeah.
that road on the east side of the mall, if you know the area, is called Fashion Boulevard, and McMillan is actually on Fashion Boulevard, but it's a couple
Yeah.
blocks to the north.
It's right by where the old
We drive by there all the time.
Murray IHC hospital
Yeah, the
used
Cottonwood
to be.
Hospital.
The Cottonwood Hospital used to
That's
be
where I
right
was
there.
born.
And so yeah.
So he goes to Bountiful up to Viewmont High School, and this Deborah Jean Kent was 17. She disappeared after leaving a theater production at the school. She left the theater production to go pick up her brother and never actually got there to pick up her brother. The school's drama teacher had told police that a stranger had asked and another student had asked each of them to come out to the parking lot to identify a car. Another student later saw the same man pacing near the rear of the auditorium, and the drama teacher spotted him again shortly before the end of the play. Outside of the auditorium, investigators found a key that unlocked the handcuffs that were removed from Carol Duranche's.
That's how they were able to connect that it was Bundy, because the key that they found in the parking lot at Viewmont High unlocked Carol Duranche's handcuffs.
Yep.
Which I thought they all had the same key.
No, not all.
Not all.
I don't know. Just the ones I got from the novelty stores.
Those aren't
Probably
real.
those, yeah.
They're not really real
But
handcuffs.
they
they
being
work.
so close to home. I mean, I could not imagine just like the panic of knowing somebody from your own city was so close to being one of Ted Bundy's victims.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, my mom was telling me back at that time, she was working at the bakery at Albertsons, and there was reported sightings of Ted Bundy that they had to escort her to her car to go home that night. Just
Which is probably smart because
smart, yeah, for, you know, all the females involved and but I just can imagine the fear. I mean, then once I get escorted to my car and I go home, I gotta get from my car inside my house. Who's gonna escort me there?
well,
Yeah.
there's that.
So in November, so this happened in October, right? And then in November, Elizabeth Clover, his girlfriend from Washington, called the King County Police a second time after reading that those young women were disappearing in towns surrounding Salt Lake City now. And again said, hey, I think this might be my boyfriend. By then, Bundy had risen considerably on their hierarchy of suspicious people. But the Lake Sammamish witnesses that were considered most reliable by this King County police department failed to identify Bundy from a photo lineup. They didn't. So again, they kind of blow it off.
So odd that, all the murders stop happening in Washington and then start happening in Utah.
So then
by somebody named Ted.
And then in December, she calls the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office and repeats her suspicions to them, and his name was added to their list of suspects. But at that time, no credible forensic evidence linked him to the Utah crimes. In January of 1975, he goes back to Seattle after his final exams, and he spends a week with Elizabeth Clover, who didn't tell him that she had reported him to the police on 3 different occasions.
Would you?
No,
I wouldn't tell him.
I wouldn't tell him either.
No.
But I also would be...
I know it weighed
Leery
really
to
heavy
have-
on her.
But I know she felt guilty about it, about having pointed the finger at a man that she was in love with. But at the same time, I would be really... If you think that he is the one doing these
How
things...
could you be with him?
How could you invite him back into your home with your daughter?
With your child.
Well, maybe it was just the fear, though, too.
That's true. And maybe, there's always that doubt of is it really him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Like, you would think that a serial killer would look like a serial killer. They'd look like a monster. Ted Bundy didn't look like a monster. He portrayed himself as a very,
Yeah, he didn't look like Manson.
No.
Manson looked crazy.
Manson looked the part, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
and you look at even Richard Ramirez. He had missing teeth and just like,
Yeah, he scary looking dude.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't understand the psychology stuff, but at any rate, she's still stuck with him. In 1975, he goes back to college, but he actually starts shifting his criminal activity eastward from his base in Utah. Now he's going to Colorado.
Yep.
On January 12th, a 23-year-old registered nurse named Carolyn Eileen Campbell disappeared while walking down a well-lit hallway between the elevator and her room at the Wildwood Inn near Snowmass Village. Snowmass is a big, if you're not from the Rockies, Snowmass is a very popular ski resort in Colorado. 400 miles from Salt Lake. Her nude body was found a month later next to a dirt road just outside the resort. She had been killed by blows to her head from a blunt instrument that left distinctive linear grooved depressions on her skull. Her body also bore deep cuts from a sharp weapon. On March 15th, 100 miles northeast of Snowmass, In Vail, ski instructor Julie Cunningham, 26, disappeared while walking from her apartment to a dinner date with a friend. Bundy later told Colorado investigators that he approached Cunningham on crutches. Again, he asked her for help to carry his ski boots to his car, where he clubbed and handcuffed her before sexually assaulting and then strangling her at another site near Rifle, Colorado, which is about 90 miles away from Vail. So he drove her a ways. And then weeks later, he made the 6-hour drive from Salt Lake City to revisit her remains again.
Gotta say hi.
Gotta say hi. What did you got?
It was this trip when they discussed finally getting married a year later.
With Liz?
Yeah.
So Denise Lynn Oliverson, I cannot talk tonight.
Oliverson.
I apologize to all of you.
She disappeared in Grand Junction on April 6th while riding her bicycle to her parents' house. And on May 6th, Bundy lured 12-year-old Lynette Dawn Culver from a junior high school in Pocatello, and he drowned her in his hotel room, after which he disposed of her body in a river, likely the Snake River, north of Pocatello.
And then in May, 3 of Bundy's Washington State co-workers, including Boone, came to Salt Lake. I think Boone was the one that he was kind of... Oh, never mind. Scratch Boone. But they came to Salt Lake. They stayed a week in his apartment. And then...
he had an ongoing relationship with Boone.
With Clover.
And with Boone.
And then in early June, they discussed getting married the following Christmas. Clover made no mention of the multiple discussions with the authorities that she had made. And Bundy disclosed neither his ongoing relationship with Boone nor a concurrent romance with a Utah law student named Kim Andrews. Yeah, so I mean, he just has these different ladies going on all the time.
Yeah, and then he got a girl at BYU in Provo.
Susan Curtis.
If that was his last confession before he was executed. But the bodies of all these women were never found.
Yeah, the bodies of Wilcox. Sorry, go ahead.
Wilcox, Kent, Cunningham, Oliverson, Culver, and Curtis. They were never found.
Wow.
And then, about 2 months later, he was baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Oh, my.
So, he was smooth. I mean, he would go to church. And
he was obviously later excommunicated, but...
well, yeah.
You would hope so, right?
Yeah, you can't do that kind of stuff and still keep membership in the church. But, his branch president at the time, which would be like the bishop or like the pastor, said that he was actually a very bright young man. He was very interested in the religion and just
because Liz was a Mormon.
Joy to be around. Yeah, Liz came from a Mormon background. Yeah,
but when asked his religious preference after his arrest, he always claimed he was Methodist. So he never even really claimed that he was LDS.
That's funny how that works, isn't it?
Right.
Although the bishop did say the branch president would say that he was not an active participant in services, and he ignored most church restrictions. So that would mean the things that you always hear about Mormons about not drinking coffee or alcohol, or he didn't really follow those sorts of things. Or go to church. Or it's like he was really earnest at first, and then they baptized him, and then he's like,
Yeah, I'm good.
So, and then after that, he finally gets arrested.
Yes, briefly.
Very briefly.
Tell us about
And
it.
he got pulled over.
Yes, he did. So Highway Patrol Sergeant Bob Hayward ends up stopping a tan Volkswagen Beetle. He says it was lingering outside a home in Granger, Utah. So Hayward ends up arresting the shaggy-haired driver after finding a ski mask, a crowbar, an ice pick, and handcuffs all in the car. But the charges evading police aren't enough to keep him detained, and Bundy is soon released.
Like, he had a whole rape kit.
Oh, yeah.
We actually saw this down at Zach Baggins Museum.
Crazy.
He has it on display down there, but he had like nylons in there and trash
All the
bags
items.
and ice picks and
Gloves.
his face mask.
Yeah.
And everything was gross.
Yeah.
So you can find that at the Zach Baggins Museum, Las Vegas, Nevada. It only costs a lot to get in.
It was $30, $40.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
It wasn't bad.
I'm curious as to what
It was a 3-hour tour.
it was.
Did you end on an island and get stuck?
Felt like it.
I am I am curious as to how much he paid for it, though. Zach
I don't
Bagans
know.
paid for that, and how it was like when it was released from evidence. It's like, I mean, I'm sure they can't keep evidence forever. Otherwise, it'd be like that warehouse at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh,
You know, just with goes on forever and ever. So they got it.
Yeah.
Eventually, at some point, they released evidence.
Yeah, they also found oh my gosh, it's not coming to me. The playbill from the high school, if you want high school, from the play from the one girl that he kidnapped out in the parking lot.
yeah.
They found part of an advertisement for the play in there.
Oh, wow.
And then he claimed that he had like a collection of Polaroids that he destroyed after he was released. So he had pictures of all of his victims and then burned them.
Kept some trophies and then got rid of them.
Yeah.
Being from the Salt Lake area, I think it's funny when they say well, he was arrested in Holiday or he was arrested in Granger.
Granger.
They say make it sound like they're different towns, which they kind of are. But dude, it's all Salt Lake.
Yeah.
It's all one giant
It's
city.
one giant city. You know, the color of the painting on the police cars is different, but otherwise, yeah, it's all the same numbering system.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just weird to me. So let's see. He was. So you said he was briefly
He was released.
detained.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He was released, and he was placed on 24-hour surveillance. And then one of the detectives flew to Seattle with two other detectives to interview Clover. And he was like, "Hey, now you told us about a year ago that your boyfriend might be the guy." And she told him that in the year prior to Bundy's move to Utah, that she discovered objects that she couldn't understand in her house and in his apartment. These items included crutches, a bag of plaster Paris.
Like he had like bag of like women's clothing. So she just assumed he was cheating on her.
Yeah. A meat cleaver that he was never used for cooking. Additional objects included surgical gloves, an oriental knife, and a wooden case that he kept in his glove compartment. A sack full of women's clothing, as Terry said. He was perpetually in debt, and Clover suspected that he'd stolen almost everything of significant value that he possessed. When she confronted him over a TV and stereo, he warned her, "If you tell anyone, I'll break your effing neck." I almost said it. "I'll break your effing neck." She said Bundy became very upset whenever she considered cutting her hair, which was long and parted in the middle. And she would sometimes awake in the middle of the night to find him under the bed covers with a flashlight, examining her body. He kept a lug wrench taped halfway up the handle in the trunk of her car, which was another Volkswagen Beetle. Again, America's car, which he often borrowed. And he kept this in this lug wrench that was taped up there for protection, apparently. And the detectives confirmed that Bundy had not been with Clover on any of the nights during which those Pacific Northwest victims had vanished, nor on the day that Ott and Naslin were abducted from Lake Sammamish. And then shortly thereafter, she was interviewed by Seattle homicide detectives and learned the existence of Stephanie Brooks and about her brief engagement to Bundy around Christmas. So now she found out there's another woman, and she wasn't happy.
I can't imagine why.
I can't imagine why. Yeah. So in September, Bundy sold his Volkswagen Beetle to a Midvale teenager.
Oh, that poor Midville teenager.
Right?
And then the Utah police impounded it. And FBI technicians dismantled and searched it. They found hairs matching samples obtained from Campbell's body, which I don't remember reading Campbell's name. But they also later identified hair strands microscopically indistinguishable from those of Smith and Duranch. And then FBI lab specialists concluded that the presence of hair strands in the car matched 3 other different victims who had never met one another, and just kind of find it really big coincidence that he's got all these different hair strands in his car. Anyway. All right, so on October 2nd, they put him in a lineup, and Carol Duranch, who was the surviving kidnap victim, immediately identifies him as Officer Roseland, is what she said his name was. And witnesses from Bountiful recognized him as the stranger from Viewmont High School auditorium. There wasn't sufficient evidence to link him to Deborah Kent, whose body was never found. But there was more than enough evidence to charge him with aggravated kidnapping and attempted criminal assault on the Duranch case. He was freed on $15,000 bail by his parents and spent most of the time between indictment and trial in Seattle, living with Clover. Seattle police had insufficient evidence to charge him in the Pacific Northwest murders, but kept him under close surveillance. It's like he was smooth. It's like they suspected him. They knew it was him, but had nothing to hold him.
Well, and he would change his appearance. That's the problem. Is like he'd change his part from one side to the other, or he'd dye his hair,
or cut it,
or he'd grow a mustache or shave it. Like he would change his appearance.
And that's what he did right before the lineup too. Is that he cut his hair, changed the part, and so all of a sudden his hair's different, and so they couldn't use the same lineup people. So they had to find people who had similar hairstyles and look. And so the only people they could find were detectives.
I thought that was the funniest thing.
Yeah, but it makes you second guess yourself when you're trying to identify your attacker.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what he did, right? He there was during that documentary they showed a picture, or each one of the pictures of his different look, and there was like 16 different.
Yeah,
and some of them didn't look even like him. Some of them looked very different. Some of them were very similar, but. Klopfer wrote in a book that when they were during this moment of surveillance before his trial, that said when Ted and I stepped out on the porch to go somewhere, so many unmarked police cars started up that it sounded like the beginning of the Indy 500.
Well, that's real undercover now, isn't it?
So then in November, the three principal Bundy investigators, a guy named Jerry Thompson from Utah, Robert Keppel from Washington, and Michael Fisher from Colorado all meet in Aspen, Colorado, exchange information, because again, like Josh said, this is before the interweb, and they exchange that with 30 detectives and prosecutors from 5 different states, and they all went to work on it, and they call it the Aspen Summit, but they were all convinced that Bundy was the murderer that they sought, and they agreed that more hard evidence had to be found, so they all go to work on all their missing persons and all of the cases to try to link Bundy to it. In February of 1976, Bundy stands trial for the Duranch kidnapping, and he waived his right to a jury due to the negative publicity surrounding the case. And after a 4-day bench trial and a weekend of deliberation, the judge found him guilty of kidnapping and assault, and he was sentenced to 1 to 15 years in the Utah State Prison.
That was it.
Yeah.
1 to 15 years.
And I mean, we just drove past that prison on the way here. It's all close to home. That's the kind of fun thing with this. At one point, when he was in there in June, he was sentenced to 1 to 15 years. Right in October, he was found hiding in bushes in the prison yard, which amazes me that there are bushes in the prison yard.
Why would you have bushes in the prison yard?
But he was carrying a quote unquote escape kit. Road maps, airline schedules, and a social security card. And he also spent several weeks in solitary confinement. Later that month, Colorado authorities charged him with Campbell's murder. After a period of resistance, he waived extradition proceedings and was transferred to Colorado. Why Utah would ever give him up?
Because murder is way more important than kidnapping.
But, I mean, they had him, and they're like, all right, you can have him.
Well, they didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, they already had him on kidnapping charges, but murder charges, obviously, is much more, important to get him caught on.
I guess it would be cool if that was the end of his murder spree.
It's almost.
It's like he was locked up in prison.
But.
And, so let's go to Colorado.
Colorado.
This is where, honestly, I think the story gets good.
It's entertaining, if nothing else.
Yeah.
This is where you realize how smart and conniving he really was.
Oh, yeah.
So, June 7th of 1977, Bundy's transported 40 miles from the Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs to Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen. So, this is Aspen. This is like the ski resort town.
Richie Rich.
Everybody's, loves Aspen. There's a movie called Aspen Extreme. Great show. He's taken there to this courthouse for a preliminary hearing. and he had elected to serve as his own attorney, which, why they allow this, okay, I guess that's your right. I don't know law. But
You're right, but you can usually gets denied.
But as such, he was excused by the judge from wearing handcuffs and leg shackles.
He just walked free.
Brilliant judge. During a recess, he asked to visit the courthouse's library to research his case. And while shielded from his guard's view behind a bookcase, he opened a window and he jumped to the ground from the second story window there, injuring his right ankle as he landed.
They just let him go into this law library by himself unobserved. And it's funny because, like, in the documentary, the episode is called It Wasn't My Turn or something like that.
Yeah.
Because somebody made the comment, is like, well, where's Bundy? It's like, it wasn't my turn to watch him. And they were kind of jokingly saying that, but nobody was really watching
But nobody
him.
watched
No.
him.
And I mean, he was so smart that he would jump off the top bunk in his jail cell repeatedly over and over and over to build up the strength in his legs to handle jumping out of the second floor. I mean,
So it
he
wouldn't
had
be
this
such a
all
shock.
pre-planned.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, he still got injured, but probably not as bad as he would have had he not practiced the landing and practiced
Over
the
Right.
jump
and over and over in his little jail cell, jumping off that top bunk.
And that didn't raise any suspicion for some reason.
Right?
Yeah, and yeah. And he said that he got there to the window and he looked back and the guard was like not paying attention. He was actually talking to like some girl from the courtroom, like that was the court recorder, and kind of like being the flirty people at work. And he's like, all right, I guess I'm doing this. So he jumped it and landed and hurt his right ankle as he landed. After shedding an outer layer of clothing, Bundy walked through Aspen as roadblocks were being set up on its outskirts.
And he went in prepared. He had layers of clothes on.
Yeah.
And he knew he had to survive the winter of Aspen. But
He practiced how fast he could change his clothes.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He determined how far it was between the courthouse and the mountains. Like
Yep.
he was mentally prepared to run.
And he
Yep.
hiked up into the mountains and got out of town. And then
Just happened to stumble across an empty cabin out
near
there.
it, somebody breaks into a hunting cabin
How
where
did he luck
steals
that one out?
food, clothing, and a rifle. The following day, he left the cabin and continued south towards the town of Crested Butte. But he got lost in the forest. And for 2 days, he wandered aimlessly on the mountain, missing 2 trails that led downward into his intended destination, to Crested Butte. On June 10th, he broke into a camping trailer on Maroon Lake. It's just south of Aspen, taking food and a ski parka. But instead of continuing southward, he walked back towards Aspen. He eluded the roadblocks and search parties all along the way. 3 days later, he steals a car at the edge of Aspen Golf Course. He's cold, he's sleep deprived, and he's in constant pain from his sprained ankle. So he drives back into Aspen to the police station, where 2 police officers noticed his car weaving in and out of his lane, and they pulled him over.
Once again, driving
Porter.
erratically.
And he was going in to turn himself in. He'd been a fugitive for 6 days. In the car were maps of the mountain area around Aspen that prosecutors were using to demonstrate the location of Campbell's body. So these are things that he took from the evidence stuff. And yeah, it's just kind of it's interesting. But it proved, because he had those maps, that it wasn't a spontaneous act, but he had planned this to happen.
But in those 6 days, he lost 25 pounds.
Yeah.
Lost a lot of pounds.
That's a
lost a
lot of
lot.
weight.
The
He lost a
the
lot.
pictures were crazy. From the before and the after. But yeah, it's just funny.
And it gets the thing is like, here he is. He escapes once, right? He gets recaptured, and
What does he do when he gets back into the jail?
he finds his way back out.
He
Yep.
finds another way back out.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the funny thing: is there were other inmates that were saying they could hear him crawling above them. Like
In the ductwork, yeah.
people were saying they could hear something, and nobody investigated what was going on.
Yeah.
Yep. He assembles an escape plan while he's there. He acquired a detailed floor plan of the Garfield County Jail and a hacksaw blade from other inmates. Accumulated $500 in cash, smuggled in over a 6-month period.
I heard some of the cash also came from like his fan club, people writing him
I'm
letters
sure,
and
I'm
giving him
sure.
money and stuff like that.
He later said by visitors, and Boone in particular, because she came to visit him a lot. During the evenings, while other prisoners were showering, he sawed a hole in about 1 square foot between the steel reinforced bars in his ceiling.
That is not very
And
big.
having
And then
lost,
he lost 10 more pounds. So
lost
now
10 more
he's down
pounds.
35 pounds.
and he was able to wriggle through this hole. It's like I probably couldn't even fit my fat head through this hole.
I know. Like, yeah. like if you get your head through, I could get that, right? But you still got to get an arm and a shoulder and
Shoulders, yeah.
like
Your hips and stuff.
I don't.
So
It's
he wants
amazing.
it free. If you want it bad enough, you make it away. So he made a series of practice runs over the series of weeks, exploring the space, and multiple reports that, like Terry said, from an informant of movement in the ceiling during the night. They weren't investigated. And by late 1977, Bundy's impending trial had become cause of being a celebrity in the town of Aspen. And Bundy filed for motion of venue to Denver. On December 23rd, the Aspen trial judge granted the request, but to Colorado Springs, where the juries had historically been hostile to murder suspects. And then on the night of December 30th, before they're getting transferred, with most of the jail staff on Christmas break and non-violent prisoners were on furlough with their families, which that seems weird to me. Non-violent, You get released to go home for Christmas.
Christmas and New Year's.
Great. Never happened now.
No.
Bundy piled books on his and files on his bed. He covered them with a blanket to simulate his body sleeping, and he climbed into the crawl space, broke through the ceiling into the apartment of the chief jailer, who was out for the evening with his wife, changed into street clothes from the jailer's closet, and walked out the front door
That blows my
to
mind.
freedom.
Right?
Just strolled on out.
Right out the front door.
After stealing a car, Bundy drove eastward out of Glenwood Springs, but the car soon broke down on I-70. Passing motorists gave him a ride into Vail, and from there, he caught a bus to Denver. He boarded a morning flight to Chicago, and back in Glenwood Springs, the jail's skeleton crew did not discover the escape until noon on December 31st, more than 17 hours later. And by then, Bundy was already in Chicago.
Now, wait, didn't he stop and go to the Rose Bowl somewhere in here too?
That's the next. And
Yeah.
So from Chicago, Bundy traveled by train to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where he was present in a local tavern on January 2nd. And that's where he went to...
He went to the Rose Bowl.
no, the Rose Bowl's in California. This was...
It was a Michigan.
it was a football game. It was Washington, I think, at Michigan.
I think so. But he almost got into a fight with a couple fans in the stands.
Almost got his butt handed to him, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway, 5 days later, he steals a car, drives south to Atlanta, where he boards a bus and arrives in Tallahassee, Florida, on the morning of January 8th. He stayed one night in a hotel before he rented a room under the alias of Chris Hagen at a boarding house near Florida State University. And Bundy later said that he initially resolved to find legitimate employment and refrain from further criminal activity.
How long did that last?
Knowing that he would actually probably remain a free person undetected in Florida indefinitely, as long as he didn't attract the attention of police. And he probably could have,
Well,
It didn't last long.
No, unfortunately it didn't. But if he wouldn't have killed again,
He would have gotten away. 100%.
They never would have found him.
No.
Because again, this is still in the 70s. There's no internet, there's no cell phones, if there was a most wanted poster, the only way to find it was to go to the post office.
Mm-hmm.
So he did have one lone job application at a construction site, but he abandoned that when he was asked to produce identification. So he reverts back to his old habits of shoplifting and stealing money and credit cards from women's wallets left in shopping carts at local grocery stores. And then we go to January 15th. So this is January 2nd. He arrives in Florida, right?
Yep.
No, January 8th is when he gets to Tallahassee.
Yep.
And then January 15th. Not a whole long. It's like a whole whole week, man.
He made it a week.
You got those there, Terry?
The Chi Omega sorority house.
Right.
He entered through the rear door with, beginning about 2:45 a.m., he bludgeoned Margaret Bowman, 21, with a piece of firewood that he had just found in the pile at the back door when he entered. And then he entered the bedroom of a 20-year-old Lisa Levy and beat her unconscious, strangled her, tore one of her nipples, bit deeply into her left buttocks, and sexually assaulted her with a hair misting bottle. This is so disgusting. In an adjoining bedroom, he attacked Kathy Kleiner, breaking her jaw and deeply lacerating her shoulder, and Karen Chandler, who suffered a concussion, broken jaw, loss of teeth, and a crushed finger. Chandler and Kleiner survived the attack. Kleiner attributed her survival to an automobile headlights illuminating the interior of her room and frightening away their attacker. Bundy escaped, but not before being seen by sorority sister, is it Nita Neary?
Nita Neary.
Nita Neary, who came through the back door and saw Bundy as he was exiting the sorority house. Tallahassee detectives determined that the 4 attacks took place in a total of less than 15 minutes. Sorry, I just lost my place.
Within earshot of more than 30 witnesses.
Yeah.
Who heard nothing.
Jeez. You think they'd have to hear something with it being that violent?
That's college.
Maybe there should be a thud.
Maybe they were high. Maybe they all had their stereos playing that damn rock and roll music too loud.
All drunk, sleeping it off.
All drunk. I mean, it's Florida State. You never know. But yeah, it's crazy. I mean, and it's sick. The rage to do these things. I mean, it's not like you're just, raping somebody because you're just turned on and have to get your jollies. I mean, these are violent. The beating with the firewood, and then tore one of her nipples. He bit her butt, like
twice.
biting. Yeah. And then he sexually assaults her with a hair mist bottle. It's like he's not even raping. He's just
erratic.
Just a violent rage is what it is.
He's just in a rage and sticking other objects, in
places they shouldn't be going.
And it's just like.
But then after leaving the sorority house, he broke into a basement apartment 8 blocks away and attacked FSU student Cheryl Thomas, dislocating her shoulder, fracturing her jaw and skull in 5 places. Oh. She was left with permanent deafness and equilibrium damage that ended her dancing career. On her bed, police found a semen stain and a pantyhose mask containing 2 hairs similar to Bundy's in class and characteristic.
The part that's crazy is like the police were at the sorority house investigating this attack or this
just a few blocks away.
And then they get this call that there's another attack has just happened 8 blocks away. And they're like, there is no way that this guy, it's the same perpetrator. Mm-hmm. But then they find out that it was the same guy. And it's amazing.
So then on February 8th, Bundy drives 150 miles east to Jacksonville in a stolen Florida State University van. And in the parking lot, he approaches 14-year-old Leslie Parmenter, who was the daughter of the Jacksonville police. So he already attacked the Midvale police chief's daughter, right?
Yep.
He attacks 14-year-old Leslie, the daughter of Jacksonville Police Department chief of detectives, identifying him as Richard Burton from the fire department. But he retreated when Parmenter's older brother arrived and confronted him. Later that afternoon, he backtracked 60 miles westward to Lake City, Florida. And at Lake City Junior High School the following morning, 12-year-old Kimberly Diane Leach was summoned to her homeroom by a teacher to retrieve a forgotten purse. She never returned to class. 7 weeks later, after an intensive search, her partially mummified remains were found in a pig farrowing shed near Suwannee River State Park, 35 miles northeast of Lake City. She appeared to have been raped and then killed by neck lacerations with a knife.
That is so sad. A 12-year-old.
Yeah.
Well, and he abducted from the school. I mean, she went to the from her class to the office. Never came back.
Which bears the question, how did he get in the school and no one questioned it?
I don't know.
Well, the schools weren't locked at that time. The schools weren't locked when I was a kid.
Well, they weren't locked either,
80s.
but like if a parent came to school, right? Unless it was like for like a play or something else, the only places they were allowed was to the office.
That's how it is now.
That's how it was when I was in school.
In Utah, when I was a teenager, even kids could be anybody. A parent could walk in and you pretty much had free roam of the school. I had parents that would come and bring their cupcakes to the class, and nobody ever stopped them. You'd stop in at the office if you needed to, but it wasn't, at least here in Utah, so I don't know what it was in Florida, but there was no security like that of having to go to the office first until after Columbine in, what was that, 96? Whenever the Columbine shootings were.
Something like that.
That's when security started kind of ratcheting down, and then there was the Newtown shooting as well in Newtown, Connecticut. And so that's when, after these school shootings became more of the thing, is when school security started getting a lot more tight. At least here. I don't know Florida. Sounds like where you grew up, it was a little bit more strict.
A little bit more.
It makes sense to be more strict, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, yeah, and it was totally different when our son was going to school. Like when we went to go pick him up, right? And it was show up to the office, tell them what you were there for, and then present ID, and then they would have to match all of that stuff to the kid's record just to even prove that you were even allowed to be there.
Oh yeah,
like
see, we didn't have that with Anna's school.
Yeah, we did.
Did we? The present ID?
I had to go into the front office and I had to sign a book that I was there, and I had to have like a printed sticker on my
visitor badge thing.
Visitor badge, yeah. I had to go in. I had to give them my driver's license number.
Because I remember going to pick her up once, and it's like walked in and
that's picking her up, not going to her classroom.
True.
This wasn't even going to his classroom. It was just trying to pick him up. He had a doctor's appointment. Walk in
and say, I'm here to pick up my daughter. And they're like, oh, great. And then call her down to the office. And they're very social and everything. And that's why we loved the lady in the office at the elementary school. She was so cool. She was like family. Anyway.
So on February 12th, he started to run. He was growing suspicion the police were closing in on him. So he stole a car and fled Tallahassee. And 3 days later, around 1 a.m., he was stopped by the Pensacola police officer near the Alabama state line. He was in a Volkswagen Beetle that he stole. He
knows how to drive a Beetle.
Yeah.
Right?
Not good, but he knows how to drive one.
But, yeah. There was wants and warrants, and so Bundy kicked the legs out from the officer that pulled him over and took running, and then police officer ran after him, fired 2 warning shots. They struggled over the gun, and Bundy was arrested. He had on him IDs belonging to FSU female students, 21 stolen credit cards, a stolen television set. Also found were a pair of dark-rimmed non-prescription glasses and a pair of plaid slacks, later identified as the disguise worn by Richard Burton Fire Department in Jacksonville.
Plaid slacks.
Yeah,
I'm just looking at these going, what the heck?
It was the 70s.
70s.
The officer, Lee, that had arrested him was unaware that he was one of the 10 most wanted when he arrested him.
Didn't he admit to it, though? Didn't he admit after he was arrested that he was Ted Bundy?
It took a while.
It took a while.
He did tell the officer, I wish you'd killed me.
I wish he would have, too.
Wouldn't have been such a good story, though, after that.
Well, yeah. Because his trials in Florida and this stuff here, I mean, it's just, it only gets more bizarre and more
fantastical, really.
Fantastical. I mean, it's not like it just, and he went to trial, was convicted, and end of story. Oh, no. This does not end here.
No.
Now, his murder spree ends here.
Yeah, because this is where he doesn't get out.
No.
He finally doesn't escape prison.
Well, when Florida put him in prison because of his 2 other escapes that he had, like, they reinforced everything and put him in a very secure cell.
And I'm sure they had a lot more guards on him this time.
Mm-hmm.
And they changed the venue and they sent him to Miami, where they could do a little bit better job of, it's not just like a little county courthouse thing. It's like, we're talking
Miami-Dade County, which
big
is,
city.
Yeah.
And this is where he stood trial for the Chi Omega homicides and assaults in June of 1979. And the trial was covered by 250 reporters from 5 continents and was the first to be televised nationally in the United States.
It was a big deal.
Yeah, it was huge.
Despite the presence of 5 court-appointed attorneys, Bundy again handled much of his own defense. From the beginning, he sabotaged the entire defense effort out of spite, distrust, and grandiose delusion.
Well,
he figured he'd get out. He's like, I could do better at this. And so he
didn't want to admit.
no, he didn't. And this was the time too. Like the defense had worked out a plea deal for him, and it's like, hey, look, we can get you life in prison. All you have to do is admit that you're guilty, and then
Like a plea bargain.
like a plea bargain, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes into court the next day and is like,
Nope.
and then throws a motion saying that his counsel is incompetent because they already think he's guilty.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just throws a whole wrench into the entire defense. And at that point in time, like he's like, I'm going to defend myself.
Yep.
Even though they didn't really allow it, they did allow him to basically serve as his own counsel, even when they had
right.
other counsel people with him.
So one of his attorneys there wrote that Ted was facing murder charges with a possible death sentence, and all that mattered to him was that he was in charge.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, that's all he cared about. He was like, it's like, really?
I think the part that I find the most crazy is once they like have him in prison, right? And he's able to run his own defense, essentially. He files tons of motions for different things, right? And one that I had to laugh at was the change of menu.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He was tired of all the grilled cheeses he kept getting.
Yeah.
He wanted different food. Come on, dude.
And then he filed one about his lighting wasn't so well, and that actually landed him in a different room. After the judge went to his cell and said, hey, yeah, this is really bad lighting. I can't imagine trying to read by this. So they put him in a conference room that was fortified, but he was still just trying to really run the show.
Well, and it's funny because you listen to like his interviews and stuff like that, and he would always whisper when
Yeah.
it came to like his confessions and stuff.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they actually had to get him to talk like third person to get him to admit stuff.
Yeah, to kind of had to disassociate him from what was happening, but him telling the story of what happened,
Yeah.
but not saying, I did this.
Yeah.
It was more
You know.
like if somebody was doing it, what would they do?
Yeah, and then like Terry
'Cause
said,
he
he would
kept
start
claiming-
to get really quiet when he talk about it.
He kept claiming he was innocent and he would never admit that he did any of it and he was going to get out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he could have had 75 years if he just listened to his attorneys.
Well, if he had taken the plea deal, he'd still be alive today, possibly. He'd still be alive.
Most definitely. Well,
Maybe. He's born in 46, so he'd be pretty old.
he'd be
But he
80,
could still be alive.
He'd be 80 something. So, yeah.
He could still be alive, but
He was born in 46.
yeah.
He'd be 76 years old.
Oh, so yeah.
So he could still be alive if he had taken the plea deal.
He might have
But would
actually
he have
been
wanted to be alive?
No.
No.
No, he didn't want to be in prison.
I don't think he would have lasted.
No.
I don't think he would either.
He couldn't survive in a place like that.
He would have escaped, actually, I think.
He would have tried.
I think he would have found a way out.
He would have definitely tried.
But yeah, they said the reason why he said that he says that in order for him to accept the plea deal, it made him realize he was going to have to stand up in front of the whole world and say that he was guilty,
And he wouldn't do that.
and he just couldn't do it.
He would never
Nope.
admit that he was guilty.
So they go into the different testimonies. The one lady who'd seen him leaving the sorority house testified, and there was the incriminating physical evidence included impressions of the bite wounds that Bundy had inflicted on Cheryl Levy's left buttock.
The one and only time where they had like a search warrant for Bundy's mouth.
Yeah.
So while he was in prison there, that was the funny thing. And I saw, was that the documentary or was
It
that
was
in
in
the
the
movie?
documentary.
Yeah.
It was both.
So
Well,
where-
in the movie, it showed them coming into his jail cell and them attacking him
And
to take
forcefully taking a bite
taking
mold.
the bite mold. But that's not the way it happened. They actually transported him to a dentist office, didn't they?
Yeah.
And he didn't really resist. Well, he tried to resist at first or something like that, and then he sat down. He's like, I'm not a violent person. And then he opened up his mouth and let them take
all you had
the
to do was
impression. All you had to
ask.
do
Yeah.
was ask. And then he opened up his mouth and let him take the impressions. But they did have a search warrant for his mouth.
Yep.
That's funny.
The interesting thing, though, is like that bite.
They would not be able to
impressions.
use that now.
No, it's been considered to be junk science.
It's like a one and done type thing that it would not hold up nowadays.
No, which is funny too because it's like if they would have tried him today with the evidence that they had,
He would have.
Oh, no way.
he
Yeah.
would have walked.
Yeah.
But if it was happened today, they would have had all this DNA evidence that would have nailed him to the wall.
He would have gotten picked up way earlier, probably while he's still in Washington.
Yeah.
Utah at least, if not Washington.
Yeah.
So he was so after a 7-hour deliberation on July 24th of 79, he is convicted for attempted first degree murder of the assaults on Kleiner, Chandler, and Thomas from the sorority house, and 2 accounts of burglary. And Judge Edward Cowart imposed death sentences for the murder convictions. Oh, so he was convicted on the Bauman and Lovey murders. I'm butchering their names. Bowman and Levy murders. And then 3 counts of attempted first degree murder. Those are the ones that survived. And then 2 counts of burglary. And he gets the death sentence for it. So go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think the coolest thing, and Jamie has the quote, is this judge, when he sentenced him, has probably the best quote I've ever heard out of somebody.
You want me to read it?
Go for it.
Okay, so the judge, when he read the verdict, the court finds that both of these killings were indeed heinous, atrocious, and cruel, and that they were extremely wicked, shockingly evil, vile, and the product of a design to inflict a high degree of pain and utter indifference to human life. This court, independent of but in agreement with the advisory sentence rendered by the jury, does hereby impose the death penalty upon the defendant, Theodore Robert Bundy. And then the judge goes on to actually say, take care of yourself, young man. And I say that to you sincerely, take care of yourself. And then he goes on to also say, it is a tragedy for this court to see such a total waste, I think, of humanity that I have experienced in this courtroom. You're a bright young man. You'd have made a good lawyer. I would have loved to have you practice in front of me, but you went another way, partner. Take care of yourself. I don't have any animosity towards you. I want you to know that.
Which was amazingly delivered in the movie, The Shockingly Evil and Vile, whatever one, Zac Efron one by John Malkovich. Did a great job with it. So 6 months after this, a second trial takes place in Orlando for the abduction and murder of Leach. That's the 12-year-old girl.
Yep.
Bundy was found guilty once again after less than 8 hours of deliberation, due principally to the testimony of an eyewitness who saw him leading Leach from the schoolyard into his stolen van. And then in that van, evidence was collected, including cloth fibers with an unusual manufacturing error, and that they were found on Leach's body, and then also fibers from this jacket were found. This is the jacket that Bundy was wearing when he was arrested, were also found in the van. So he gets a second death sentence from this one, I believe.
Yep.
During the penalty phase of the Leach, during the penalty phase of Leach trial, Bundy took advantage of an obscure Florida law, providing that a marriage declaration in court in the presence of a judge constituted a legal marriage. And so, as he was questioning Boone, one of his groupie girlfriends, who had moved to Florida to be near Bundy, and she had testified on his behalf during both trials. She was again testifying on his behalf as a character witness, and then he asked her to marry him. She accepted. And Bundy declared to the court that they were now legally married because this was presented in front of a judge. On February 10th of 1980, Bundy was sentenced for a third time to the death by electrocution. As the sentence was announced, he reportedly stood and shouted, "Tell the jury they were wrong." This third death sentence would be the one that ultimately was actually carried out 9 years later. So in October of 1981, Boone gave birth to a daughter named Rose, and she named Bundy as the father.
How did they get a conjugal visit?
Conjugal visits were not allowed at the Florida State Prison, where Bundy was incarcerated. Inmates there were known to pool their money in order to bribe the guards to allow them intimate time alone with their female visitors.
Boone had actually said in an interview that they actually had quite a few conjugal visits, and the guards would walk in and they're just like, whatever.
Yeah, they had a few encounters. It wasn't just one.
Nope.
No, they had quite a few. And they had their own little...
They had their little
family on death row.
Yeah, she'd bring the daughter in, and Bundy got to meet her, and all that stuff.
So, fast forward to October. I mean, even then, he's in prison, right? Death row. In July of 1984, prison guards found 2 Hawks hacksaw blades hidden in Bundy's cell.
He was trying to escape again.
A steel bar in one of the cell's windows had been sawed completely through, top to bottom, and glued back into place with a homemade soap-based adhesive. Several months later, guards found an unauthorized mirror, and Bundy was moved to a different cell. Shortly thereafter, he was charged with disciplinary infractions and unauthorized correspondence with with another high-profile criminal that he'd been friends with there in prison, Mr. John Hinckley Jr. You know that name?
That name's
It's
familiar.
familiar.
Isn't that the one that shot President Reagan?
Oh, I think so.
I think. I could be wrong.
That sounds familiar.
In October of 1984, Bundy contacted Officer Keppel. He was the one from Washington.
Yep.
And offered to share his self-proclaimed expertise in serial killer psychology.
Who did you say you tried to kill?
Didn't John Hinckley Jr. shoot Ronald Reagan?
Yes.
Yeah. I thought it was in California, though, I thought. Maybe it was in Florida. It makes sense if he was in Florida. But anyway, so in October 1984, he contacts Keppel, offers to share his proclaimed expertise in serial killer psychology in the ongoing hunt in Washington for the Green River Killer, later identified as Gary Ridgway. Keppel and Green River Task Force Detective Dave Reichert interviewed Bundy, but Ridgway remained at large for a further 17 years. Yeah, so he's like... In fact, the movie Silence of the Lambs is loosely based on several serial killers, but one of those aspects of them contacting him to say, hey, what can you... If you were to look at this case, what would you think of it?
Yeah, they would bring in the case files to Ted to look over. And
Kind of like
Yeah.
they did with
say,
Hannibal
well,
Lecter.
if it was me, this is what I would do.
And he's the one, he told them that he loves them. And he goes back and he visits them. So when you find a body, he's going to come back and visit
Right.
that spot because it's special to him.
Yeah. And I think the part that's crazy about all of this is that the FBI started a task force. And they interviewed people like Bundy. They interviewed Bundy. They interviewed Charles Manson. They interviewed other serial killers and serial rapists to start to get this criminal profiling stuff going. And so that's when they actually started criminal profiling with the FBI.
So in early 86, the execution date of March 4th was set for the Chi Omega convictions, and the U.S. Supreme Court issued a brief stay. But the execution was quickly rescheduled. And in April, shortly after the new date of July 2nd was announced, Bundy finally confessed to one of the investigators and to Nelson, who was on his defense team, that what they believed was the full range of his depredations. So this is where it gets sick. He goes into in details about what he did to some of his victims after their deaths. He told them that he revisited Taylor Mountain in Issaquah and other secondary crime scenes, often several times, to lie with his victims and perform sexual acts with their bodies until putrefaction forced him to stop. So until the decomposition was just too much. In some cases, he drove for several hours each way and remained the entire night. In Utah, he applied makeup to Smith's lifeless face and repeatedly washed Amy's hair. Because if you've got time, he told Hagmeyer, then they can be anything you want them to be. He decapitated approximately 12 of his victims with a hacksaw and kept at least one group of severed heads, probably the 4 found on Taylor Mountain, in his apartment for a period of time before disposing of them. Less than 15 hours before the scheduled July 2nd execution, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals stayed it indefinitely. So, like, okay, we're not being executed at all. We're on stay until we're done, until we say. And remanded the Chi Omega case for review on multiple technicalities. So now they're going to re-examine the Chi Omega case. And including his mental capacity to stand trial and an erroneous instruction by the trial judge during the penalty phase, requiring the jury to break a 6-6 tie between life imprisonment and death penalty. Ultimately, none of these were ever resolved. A new date, November 18th, was set to carry out the Leach sentence, because that's the one, like I said, that was going to stick, was that 12-year-old girl. And So that's scheduled for November 18th. The 11th Circuit Court issued a stay on November 17th, the day before. In mid-1988, the 11th Circuit ruled against Bundy, and in December, the Supreme Court denied a motion reviewing the ruling. Within hours of that denial, a firm execution date of January 24th of 89 was announced. And, contrary to popular belief, the courts moved Bundy. They moved him as fast as they could. They wanted to get this guy gone.
Yep.
He was fast-tracked, even though all these things sound, all the processes, he was supposed to die in, for the 1st of March? And it wasn't until, what did I just say? January?
Yep.
So, several times, but with all avenues exhausted, no further motivation to deny his crimes, Bundy agreed to speak frankly with investigators. He confessed to Keppel that he'd committed all 8 of the Washington and Oregon homicides for which he was the prime suspect. He described 3 additional previously unknown victims in Washington, 2 in Oregon, which he declined to identify. He said a 5th corpse was on Taylor Mountain, but he incinerated her head in Clofer's fireplace. He described the Issaquah crime scene where the bones of Ott and Naslund and Hawkins were found. It was almost like he was just there, Keppel said. He was seeing everything. He was infatuated with the idea because so much time was spent there. It goes on and on. He ended up confessing to detectives in Idaho, Utah, Colorado, about all the numerous ones.
Okay, so he was arrested in 1978 and did not go to the electric chair until 1989.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So he was in jail for
11 years.
11 years. He should have been.
Yeah.
He didn't deserve 11 years.
No, he really didn't. But part of that was because he was assigned an attorney that was the one that was fighting for all of the stays. And so this gets back to that theory that I had before about the monthly killings.
Yeah.
Is that during that time, during those stays, she actually had an expert come out and examine him and get she was an expert in like brain psychology and stuff. She actually determined that he was manic depressant. He was bipolar. Mm-hmm. And so she determined that during these killings was when he was coming off his manic state.
His swings.
Right. And so what you see in manic depressants is they go in these cycles. And sometimes it's a monthly cycle. Sometimes it's a lot quicker, right? But if he's cycling once a month and as he's coming down off that manic state, that's when he's going to start doing these pieces.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
And it seemed like it got worse because they started to get more frequent.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, and then like his last words, this kills me. His last words directed his attorney Jim Coleman and Methodist minister Fred Lawrence was, "Jim and Fred, I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends."
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I thought was interesting is
that's weird.
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
One thing that was weird was Boone, the lady he married, who'd been speaking on his defense so many times that he was innocent. She felt deeply betrayed by him finally coming through and saying, "Yeah, I did all these things," and then telling all the things that he did. And
Because she thought he was innocent the whole
thought
time.
he was guilty. Thought you were innocent the whole time.
She thought he was innocent and thought he was going to get out.
Well, so
And-
did his mom.
So brainwashed.
Yeah, I feel bad for his mom,
His
actually.
mother,
Yeah.
And
thought he was innocent.
Thought
he
And
was
when he
innocent.
confessed, it just...
Yeah.
she was just
Well, in his whole execution was there was a big party outside the jail. There was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
people were
I remember seeing
tailgating
that on
out
the
there,
news. Yeah.
and there was fireworks going off, and people with their signs, and
Selling T-shirts and
yeah.
pins and memorabilia and
Well, with his mother, I know that when they played the recording of him confessing after thinking her son was innocent all this time, she just kind of laid her head down and made these little like noises. And then when it was all over, they said she got up and looked at everybody and says, "Well, who wants pie and ice cream?"
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So then his body was taken and was cremated in Gainesville, and then his ashes were scattered at an undisclosed location in the Cascade Range of Washington State, according to his will. I don't think they should have upheld his will at all.
I don't think so.
No.
They shouldn't have given him what he wanted.
Mm-mm.
No, but it is humane. It is the right and humane thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, but
if-
what else were they going to do with his ashes or his
Wait
body?
20 years and sell them to Zach Baggins.
Yeah, right?
They could have made a lot of money.
They could
They
have.
could have been rich.
Yeah. And then there's just a lot more notes I have on just his modus, the way he did things, more stories. And then I have a list of all the victims that I think we probably...
Yeah.
They have what?
We've been going long
confirmed-
enough, right?
They have confirmed what, 30 something?
30 some.
Yeah, but they're assuming it's more close to over 100. Because at one point he said that if the killer was caught for the crimes they were accusing him for, would be 3 digits in 6 states.
Yep.
Yeah, the night before his execution, he confessed to 30 homicides.
Yeah. And the part that's weird is like, because he said California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, Utah, Florida, and Colorado.
But there were other missing cases in Chicago area. And basically everywhere where he went, there were missing cases that fit the profile.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
He was a very demented and active boy.
Right. So there's a whole list of other possible victims as well from Washington, Utah,
Yeah.
that they just don't know.
So,
Sorry, go ahead.
no, I was saying this is just this story is a very interesting one. And it's like I said, it's the murders are not the part that is the most fantastical part of this whole story. It's everything after he gets caught in Colorado. That's just, it's like you escape from jail twice. You know,
Right.
you get caught for drive. The only reason why you get caught is you can't drive straight.
Portraying himself as this innocent, perfect person that he
Yeah.
wasn't.
Well, like when he was interviewed by the press outside of his first trial, he's like, "I'm innocent. I'm going to graduate from law school. I'm going to be a great lawyer." And it's like there's just this arrogance about him that he just didn't care.
He was so full of himself, 100%.
Yeah.
He wanted the spotlight. He wanted the attention. He wanted what he got.
Well, I think he gets it. I'm looking through, so just some of the books. There's tons of books, but movies, right? Everybody wants to be a movie star. There's just a list of some of the movies. Like I said before, there was The Deliberate Stranger from '86, played by Mark Harmon. There was a 2002 Ted Bundy movie. There was The Stranger Beside Me in 2003. The Riverman in 2004. He's played by Cary Elwes. You know, we know him as Wesley from The Princess Bride. Bundy, an American Icon in 2008. The Capture of the Green River Killer in 2008. Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile by Zac Efron. That was 2019. Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman in 2021. And No Man of God in 2021.
Yeah.
Those are just the films. And there's TV shows and
docudramas and all of that stuff.
I do have one quote, and this is the thing that I think that we saw this at the end of that documentary series on Netflix. There was a quote from Bundy that I thought was really interesting, and for me, that's kind of what I wanted to end with. Was this is him saying this? He says, "We want to be able to say that we can identify these dangerous people. The really scary thing is that you can't identify them. People don't realize that there are potential killers among them. How could anyone live in a society where they lived with, worked with, and admired with people? Sorry, let me say that again. How could anyone live in a society where people they lived with, worked with, and admired could the next day turn out to be the most demonic people imaginable?" And that's just kind of it, you know?
Yeah.
You go to, was it Wednesday Addams? Like, what are you dressed up for Halloween? I'm a homicidal maniac. They look just like everyone else.
Yeah.
So
Truth.
the person you're sitting next to while you're listening to this podcast could be a psycho killer.
Could be the Zodiac.
Wait, didn't they catch the Zodiac killer?
Nope.
No,
Oh,
he never
He's
caught
never
him.
been
Nope.
caught.
Never been caught.
He's probably dead, but he's never been caught.
Hope you liked the show. There's tons more out there that you can do more research on Ted Bundy if you want to. Hopefully we've told enough of the story to satisfy that. But otherwise than that, this is actually going to be the last show that Teri and I are on. We're stepping back from the show for a ways. So thank you for listening. And
Thank you for gracing us with your presence for this last.
It's been over a
It's
year.
been a
15
fun
months?
journey. It's been a
been a
really
while.
fun journey.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get invited back as guests. Maybe not. We'll see. It's up to Josh and Jamie.
If we have anything interesting to say,
They might not want us back.
They may
She's
not.
like, maybe not. And then she looks at me.
They might not want us back.
but yeah. So in the meantime,
Stay ghosty, my peeps. Thank you for listening to the Paranormal Peeps podcast. You can find us on social media at Twitter at CPR Paranormal, on Facebook at Paranormal Peeps Podcast and Cold Spot Paranormal Research. And you can find us on Instagram at coldspot_paranormal_research.